Hi, I'm Dan Costa, editor-in-chief of PCMag.com, and welcome to a special CES edition of Fast Forward, where we have conversations about living in the future. One of the major themes here at CES 2018 is smart cities. What are smart cities? How do they work? We've got a great guest today to talk to us about that. It's Mike Zeto, the general manager for AT&T's Smart Cities unit. He's going to talk to us about smart cities, about automation, about 5G, and when it's finally going to get here. It's going to be a great conversation. Mike, thanks so much for joining me.
No, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about AT&T's role in sort of the creation of smart cities. You're in charge of the Smart Cities division. What does that mean on a day-to-day basis? What does your job look like?
Yeah, so I actually have some expanded responsibilities where I've got smart cities, and my job is to create the strategy, the product and solutions, and the go-to-market for our smart cities business. I have responsibility for drones, which obviously now is really starting to play a key role in public safety and has the opportunity to continue to do that. I have responsibility for the IoT devices that are FirstNet enabled in our nation's first public safety broadband network for first responders. And I also have public-private partnerships for the company that I'm responsible for developing with cities and municipalities. So it's a mouthful, and it's a strategy, product, and go-to-market role for the company across 5 different key areas.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot to that's a lot of categories. What do you and there's a whole pavilion at CES all dedicated to smart cities.
It's crazy.
Everything from scooters to infrastructure.
Yep.
How would you define what a smart city is? What does it take to be a smart city?
So smart cities now has a lot of different definitions, right? 2 years ago when we started the business, and by the way, we were the first carrier to stand up a dedicated smart cities business in the world. And 2 years ago when we stood up the business, we really looked at smart cities as a strategic use of Internet of Things technology to create a more livable, efficient, safe, and equitably diverse city. Right? And so it's really the underlying use of Internet of Things technology is what really helps you create that smart city, and it's the strategic use of that. And so when we came to market, the first thing we did was develop our AT&T Smart Cities framework. And the goal of that was to really help cities develop a strategy that broke down silos, and then they could take technology solutions that drove value, deploy them in an area, prove that they truly are driving value for citizens, and then for the businesses that the city served, and then scale those based on those key learnings. And we've really seen it start to happen. So it's pretty amazing where the business has come from just 2 years ago in smart cities overall, because now you have not only the large players, but it's getting really noisy, and you've got a lot of the smaller companies because of the innovation that's starting to occur and the collaboration, and that's awesome for everybody.
So what are some of the greatest smart cities that you've actually been to?
The U.S. is really catching on. So if you look at government-owned cities, right? So you're in China, they can build cities from the ground up, and the government's funding all that. You look at Europe, and there's a lot of public-private partnership opportunities and money flowing down from the EU into the local municipalities. There's the PPPs coming together. They can get a lot more done. In the U.S., I would say we're trailing, but we're coming, right? And Atlanta is one of the cities that's done a really good job developing out a corridor that you could truly understand how IoT technologies and a strategy could really create that smart city environment that benefits citizens and the businesses along that corridor. That's something you can easily scale across the entire city. So I'd say Atlanta's one. You have pockets of scale of IoT solutions or smart city solutions in other cities where you have a deployment in Miami-Dade County where it's specific to housing projects. You've got LED lighting, connected LED lighting, smart lighting solutions deployed at scale in places like LA, right? We've got 100,000 LED connected lights, but that's all they've done from a smart cities perspective. So you really don't have a smart city. You've got some smart procurement that's been done.
Smart neighborhoods.
In one area, of a silo in the city government or one neighborhood. So.
What are Atlanta's your hometown?
I do live in Atlanta, yeah.
So what are some
But
of the
I see all the cities. So
yeah, right.
Dallas is doing great, Chicago did great, New York's doing great. I'm not biased to Atlanta.
What are some of the in that corridor in Atlanta, like what are some of the advantages to for businesses operating in that smart city?
Yeah, so from a business perspective, you think of economic development, right? When you start to create a more efficient environment, you have the opportunity to decrease congestion. So if you're the CEO of a company and you're looking to relocate to a major market, yeah, tax benefits are great, but at the end of the day, you still have to be able to recruit talent. So in order to have talent living in a metro region, it has to be livable, right? So if you've got more efficient traffic flow, you've got public transportation, right? Those are the types of things that really help businesses realize the benefit of it. And then you have connectivity. And connectivity is not just for the benefit of businesses, but obviously for the benefit of the citizens and of consumers, whether that be in the urban centers or out into the rural areas. It's important that you're focused on that equitable distribution of the technology to really drive benefit for all, not just for pockets.
So one of the technologies that we've always referred to as being required to really roll this out in mass is 5G. And 5G is going to be, we've been hearing that it's coming for many, many years. What's the state of the rollout now? What's the technology like, and what is it going to enable in the smart city space? Yeah,
so I back up and I would just, I'll give you a counterpoint to that. I don't know that you need 5G to create a smart city, right? We are creating smart cities today with 4G LTE, and we're good there. You also have low power solutions like LTE-M. Connectivity is the thread that's weaved through any solution that's going to be rolled out into a city. It needs to be secure, it needs to be scalable, but you also need to be flexible. The connectivity options can be different based on the use case. 5G is important when you get to autonomous vehicle, when you get to drones. You've got lower latency. And you've got the ability with that lower latency to process at the edge. That's something that you guys are probably talking a lot about in PCMag, edge processing. So 5G is really important. We're going to have 5G in 12 markets by the end of the year, and then we'll continue to scale it from there. So you'll start to actually see that 5G technology in play, and as the standards are continue to be developed and the hardwares continue to be manufactured, then you'll start to see that roll out at scale over the next several years.
So the hope that I've heard right now, and the standards aren't fully set yet, but the promise of 5G was that the standards were going to be such that we would be using the same 5G here in New York City or here in Las Vegas that we'd be using in Hong Kong, that we'd be using in Europe. Do you think that's the way it's going to shape out? I mean, does it look like we're going to have one 5G for planet Earth?
I can't predict the future, but we tend to follow the same standards and work with the same standards bodies. GSMA helps drive a lot of that through 3GPP, so we do have the opportunity to potentially see 5G standardized across the entire globe, which will be great.
So you talked a little bit about the LED lights being one of these, LED lighting being one of the fundamental technology that's starting to roll out. There's also sort of unexpected applications like Shot Spotter. Sure. That's enabled by having sensors and connectivity. Can you just talk a little bit about that technology? Sure.
Yeah, and the reason everybody goes to LED lighting is because of the energy efficiency that's driven from that.
It pays for itself.
Yeah, it pays for itself, and it pays for a lot of other things as well, because you can take those savings and you can use those dollars to drive value through deploying other technology for citizens. Where things start to get interesting is when you take lighting or that vertical asset, the pole, and you use that as a way to create an IoT platform for municipalities, right? And that's where you can start to get scale, because there's lighting infrastructure everywhere. Some of it's utility owned, which, by the way, the utilities are an incredibly important partner to have in the smart city ecosystem in region, and then you've got the cities. And so we've started to actually develop products in partnership with GE. We have AT&T digital infrastructure. It's a sensor node that has multiple cameras, it has environmental sensors, and then it has those audio sensors that allow you to detect decibel levels and know that it's a gunshot, right? And so when you start to take sensor technology like that and place it on a vertical asset and then develop applications on top of it, you almost create what could be considered a smartphone for municipalities, right? And with that, not only provides the value of being able to detect unreported gunshots, triangulate on them, and then dispatch units, we can associate a FirstNet SIM with that. So then you've got prioritization and preemption on that device as well. So it gives first responders priority on that and be able to get data. And then you also have the ability to drive economic development on top of solutions like that, because all of that data gives app developers the opportunity to create that new killer app that really drives value using that data. And that's really where we're getting to with smart cities. Smart cities is really about democratizing data and creating those data-driven outcomes and allowing the cities to go from being reactive to being proactive. And that's everything from managing infrastructure to the first responders having a safer environment to go into when they're responding to an incident.
It's a really great example because like the ShotSpotter application is really neat. You can you can identify where shots are fired. You can send police to that location very specifically, very quickly. But it's ultimately running on a platform that you're building, which is built. It could be built into the street lights, or it could be built into other devices.
Sure.
That includes cameras, sensors, connectivity.
Yep.
And the idea is that anyone will be able to run applications on that platform. The city could run applications, private businesses could run applications, and we're just getting to that point where people are taking advantage of the infrastructure that's being rolled out.
Yeah, and that's why we call it digital infrastructure, because it is infrastructure, right? And it is about creating a digital experience, leveraging the data from those sensors, right? And you talk about 5G, and we talk about, why is AT&T the right firm to be your trusted advisor to the cities? Your publication is a trusted advisor to consumers. We are a trusted advisor to cities, and the reason is because all of that stuff needs to be connected. We've been doing that for 100+ years. We know how to do it securely, and we also know how to develop solutions that add value on top of that network.
So let me, in terms of the data that's going to enable a lot of these applications, what is the state of it seems to me that we've got private companies that have collecting great data, we've got municipalities that have access to huge data sets. What's the state of sharing data and the relationship between the two at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a work in progress, right? And I think we all knew it was going to be, right? When you talk about data, you talk about privacy, those are hot topics. For citizens, those are hot topics for the providers like AT&T and the Ciscos of the world, and those are hot topics for the cities, right? And it's interesting because I think you're starting to see more citizens and the city and private enterprise embrace the open data strategy. Our rule of thumb is that we're going to follow the privacy policies that we have in place to protect the consumer, right? And also make sure that we're following the policies that are in place by the local municipality. Right?
Whose policies do you think are stricter? It seems to me almost private companies have more rules in place than public.
I'll tell you. I will tell you hands down. There is nobody, there is no company in the world that has stricter data privacy policies than AT&T, right? And I would assume that the rest of the carriers follow the same suit, just because the massive amounts of data. Now, aggregated and anonymized data, you can use, right? In certain use cases, data that's been opted in for use, you can use, right? But you just need to be really specific with that. So, but I will say this: the cities are spending much more time talking through data privacy and the policies around that. It just takes time to change policy in government, right? That's one of the adoption issues of smart cities, right? It hasn't scaled as quickly because you're still dealing with the same issues that you had 10 years ago, right? It's policy, it's procurement, and it's funding. It's not the technology. The technology's there, the technology's been there, right? It's how do you develop policy that enables you to buy more strategically and to partner more strategically, which will allow you to then scale a lot faster and provide the value back in a more meaningful manner.
Very cool. I want to ask you some questions I ask everybody that comes on the show.
Yeah. Do I get to ask you questions as well?
If you want to, sure, okay, absolutely.
Right. We might turn this into Q&A. I don't know.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, so what technological trends concern you the most? Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Cyber, man. I mean, security is still, it needs to be top of mind for everybody, right? We spend a heck of a lot of time focusing on cybersecurity and creating solutions around that, securing. We make sure the device layer is secured, we make sure the network's secured, we make sure the cloud's secured, and then the applications are secured. And then you've got to have threat analysis that's 24/7, 365, because people are constantly trying to crack into secure systems, right? And security is my main concern. I think we are starting to see state government here in Nevada. They've just hired a chief security officer, which is awesome. You're starting to see them hired in the cities now. And so as they get resources, meaning budget, they can go out and hire a person or a small team, and then they can lean on the private sector to help with that. You also have your research universities. So the research universities, like a Georgia Tech, for instance, or like a CMU in Pittsburgh, they've been very active in helping to provide cybersecurity resources and data and analytics resources to the cities. So that helps them not have to go out and spend the money. They just partner with their local ecosystem, and they've got great industry expertise right there.
And that problem's not going away. It's actually even harder for a lot of the smaller companies that don't have dedicated security divisions. They've got products and technology they want to bring to market, but they've got to secure it in order to really make it scale.
100% correct, 100% correct.
Is there a technology or a product or a service that you use every day that still inspires wonder?
Dude, my car. I mean, honestly, I think.
What kind of car is it?
Well, it's a Maserati, but
okay, that would inspire wonder.
But here's the thing: the technology in the car is not that good, right? So I had a BMW before. The technology in the BMW was fantastic, right? Had all the bells and whistles. You move to the Maserati, it's all about the engine, right? And the technology is very basic. But you know where we can go with 5G and enabling autonomous vehicles. I mean, you start to look at Teslas. Teslas are basically driving themselves today, right? All they have to do is flick a switch and they could do even more, right? So the amount of technology that's put in the car at the software layer, and we've done that in the network with software-defined networks, and you can just add the upgrades versus changing the hardware. A Tesla right now, I just rode in one the other day, and I was absolutely shocked at the amount of autonomous features that are there already. And that can continuously be upgraded if you want to pay for a little more or regulation gets passed. So I think that puts us on the path to that really being the coolest technology that's going to be out there. It's when we can all afford that type of Tesla technology in a more standard vehicle.
Yeah, Tesla has got a lot of problems as a company. They're going to have challenges scaling and delivering on all the promises that they've made. But there's no question that they're a disruptive company.
100%.
And every auto manufacturer is watching everything they do and saying, how can we do that? And how can we move faster? And how can we roll this out? They're fascinating. They're definitely a leader in the space.
You know, you made a good point. It's easy to disrupt, but it's hard to disrupt at scale.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, that's a great point you made.
And the existing automakers are either going to learn from Tesla and steal from them, and because they have the advantages of scale, or Tesla may get over the hump and be able to figure out how to make cars in volume. Because right now, I think they're still making a lot of them by hand.
Competition's good, right? Competition drives innovation, right? And innovation is what drives value, right? When you get the innovation packaged up and you can get it to scale. So I think the OEMs are learning from Tesla, and I think that the OEMs are starting to also open up to each other as well, and create a more inclusive. Even though they're competitors, they're creating a more inclusive, collaborative environment where they're starting to share. Because eventually, if you think about smart cities, OEMs will even have to share data together to the city so that the city can create more efficient traffic patterns, and you've got vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, and again, autonomous, and that's what 5G is all enabling.
I think that's one of the spaces I like the fact that municipalities are negotiating with Uber and Lyft, and I don't know they've gone so far as to actually negotiate for data, but they should be sharing data and optimizing their streets and their traffic patterns using the data that Uber and Lyft are creating.
You're starting to see it happen, yeah, because the city knows they have something of value, right? And so you're starting to see that partnership exchange. You know, you talk about public-private partnerships. You know, that's that exchange of value to help drive each other's initiatives, and you're starting to see that between those ride-sharing companies and large fleet companies and the city, who also usually has a large fleet of some kind, right?
Yeah. If people are interested in following you and what you and AT&T are working on, where can they find you?
You can always hit me on LinkedIn, right? So it's Michael Zeto. It's find me on LinkedIn, do the search. I'm the third, so it's not hard to miss, or not easy to miss, and then mzeto at Twitter. Great.
Of course, now we're about to end the interview. The noise and the people in the hallway have all left, and it's dead silence.
Well, at least you know it was a good show, and you know that there was 130,000 plus people around this week. So that's good for everybody, because people are embracing the innovation in the industry.
Yeah, we had about 110,000 of them in this hallway while we were shooting this interview. So thanks for standing with us, staying by us with our audio issues. But Mike, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, man, no problem. Thanks so much, and great work with all you guys do. You're great. great. You do great work.
Thanks, Ben.
No problem.
That's Fast Forward for today. If you like this episode, you can find back episodes on PCMag.com. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you in the future.